Welcome back to Morning Express. It's now 4 minutes to 8, and do stay with us right here. Later on, we're going to be looking at your health, and before you get into the festive season and enjoy all the merry and cheer and food, we'll be letting you know how you can do that in a healthy way. But for now, we would like to do matters, this year marks 52 years of diplomatic relations between Australia and Kenya. Australia enjoys a multifaceted engagement with Kenya. Over 3,000 Australians live in Kenya, and there is a growing Kenyan diaspora in Australia. Australia is a popular destination for Kenyan students to undertake undergraduate or postgraduate studies. Today, around 5,000 students are studying in Australia. Kenya-Australia relations continue to grow, and now we have a new Australian High Commissioner to Kenya, Her Excellency Miss Alison Chartres, who took office in Kenya in October this year. How much do we know about Miss Chartres? In the studio, we have her to expand and just let us know how Kenya is doing with its relations. Welcome and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Let's start first of all with your experience of Kenya. 2 months down the road, your take on Kenya.
Okay. Look, this is a fantastic country. For me, it's a dream come true to come here. I have some family history here from some years ago. My father studied here in secondary school with his brother. My paternal grandparents lived here.
Oh, here in Kenya?
They're buried here, yes, in Nairobi. They came out from the UK in the early 50s. So I grew up as a child in Australia with lots of African books and, paintings, pictures on the walls of Africa. So for me, it's a dream come true to be here.
All right, and is it your first time to be in Kenya and in Africa?
I was here 17 years ago as a tourist. I spent a couple of months doing one of those overland safari trips from Cape Town to Nairobi.
Oh, wow. You're adventurous, eh?
Yes, a lot of Australians are. We love travelling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So what's your impression of Kenya now that you're here, not as a tourist? Because with touring, you pretty much just drive through. But now you've been in Kenya. I'm sure you're staying in Nairobi. Your feeling of the country so far?
Look, it's been a very interesting, dynamic couple of months since my husband and I moved here. Love everything about it. We haven't had a chance to get out much and explore outside of Nairobi yet. We're in Naivasha last weekend, and we're looking forward to seeing a lot more of the country. But we can see that Nairobi is an incredibly dynamic city, and I'm sure the rest of the country is going to just show us a whole lot more about Kenya and its people and the economic development and the potential that Kenya has to grow even stronger. I've followed Kenya's development from afar for many years, and I'm just impressed by the entrepreneurship and the innovation and the drive of Kenyans. So it's going to be a very exciting few years for me here.
For you. All right, let's talk about our relation 52 years on between Australia and Kenya, and looking at the exchange. For instance, there's education, there's also trade that we have with Australia. Your thoughts on whether that relationship is growing and to what extent?
Yeah, look, it certainly is growing. As you mentioned, education is a very strong part of our bilateral relationship. We have around 1,500 to 2,000 students a year going to Australia to study at tertiary institutions and technical and vocational education institutions. We want to see more of that. We provide through the Australian government a scholarship program for some Kenyans to undertake postgraduate studies and short courses. But obviously there are a lot more students travelling and studying for through private means, and we only want that to increase and grow. An Australian company, Base Titanium here, is actually running Kenya's biggest mining venture, Base Titanium, down in Kwale County, and that's mineral sands mining. We want to see more companies from Australia operating here.
Right.
Strengthen that. We have about 35 companies at the moment working in different aspects of trade and investment. We want to diversify and grow that, and there's lots of opportunities.
What do you think makes education in Australia for Kenyans popular?
The quality of our education, I think we have a very strong international reputation. We have a very strong qualifications recognition framework. So when you receive a qualification in Australia, it is internationally recognised. So that means for Kenyans, obviously we want them to come back to Kenya and contribute to the growth and development of Kenya, but it also means that those skills are transferable for them wherever they wish to work. We have a great climate, we have a great lifestyle, we're a very welcoming multicultural society.
Right.
We have a Kenyan-born senator in the Australian Parliament.
Yes, I remember seeing that, and
yes.
that made news here, especially on social media, and
yes.
I'm sure she's faring on well. But still on education, you talked about scholarships that are available even for Kenyans. Maybe tell us
yes.
a little bit about more
yes.
about that, because I'm sure there's some would be interested.
Yeah, sure. So it's called our Australia Awards program. Obviously, those viewers can look at the website, which is australiaawardsafrica.org if they wish to get some more information. But we've just closed applications for the next master's level studies for 2019, but we still have short course applications available, so people can go on the website. We're obviously focused on mostly through our scholarship program, postgraduate studies, so masters I mentioned, but also short courses. So Kenyans who have already studied, who are currently undertaking work in various disciplines. Primarily we focus on those who are working in agriculture, in public policy, and in the extractive sector areas. We aim for gender equality in our scholarship program, and I'm pleased that we've got just a few more women than men in our next intake in the scholarships program.
Mm-hmm. So that's deliberate.
So that's deliberate. We really encourage women. We encourage persons with disabilities to apply as well. We have a very strong proactive policy approach on both gender and those with disabilities.
All right, and looking at the other way around now, do we have many Australians living in Kenya?
We have over 3,000, I think, as you mentioned, yeah. The number's probably higher. We encourage Australians, obviously, to register with us at the Australian High Commission so that we can reach out to them and give them news from time to time. But we think there's a very dynamic group of Australians here. Obviously, many of them we link in with through the Australian High Commission, working in various fields and sectors here. We have, I think our statistics I've seen from 2015, that 12,000 Australians visited Kenya for tourism. So we're also very keen to have more Kenyans travel to Australia to see some of our great,
it is a long journey to Australia. What is it, about 24 hours?
It's just less than a day, yes.
Just slightly less than a day. But I'm sure it's a journey that many will enjoy, and I'm sure it is worth, the journey. Business opportunities. What business opportunities are there for Kenyans, possibly in Australia?
Well, we have a very diverse growing economy, and I know that Kenya has a very vibrant growing economy as well, so we've got a lot in common in that respect. But opportunities in Australia, look, as I mentioned, we're very strong obviously on manufacturing and agriculture, mining and extractive sector. Our services industry is growing, so a lot of our most recent Kenyans who have moved to Australia have been in the last 10 years, and they're skilled migrants. So we're really interested in those who have experience in the services sectors, as I said, manufacturing, so a wide range of career options in Australia.
Okay. Where do you see the bilateral relationships between Kenya and Australia in the next few years? What are some of the objectives that you'd like to see met during your tenure?
Yeah, for sure. Well, a very strong focus for me over the next few years will be strengthening those private sector and commercial linkages, increasing our two-way trade, so both Australia into Kenya and Kenya into Australia, and as I mentioned before, diversifying that investment. Right. So, I was listening to the President's speech on Jamhuri Day and had a chance to say some words to him in the last couple of weeks, including when I presented my credentials, and we talked about the opportunities around our technical and vocational education sector is very strong in Australia. We'd like to see more support from Australia here for the mining and extractives area. So there's some of the areas I'd like to explore further. Fisheries, aquaculture. We're both countries are members of the Indian Ocean Rim Association, so we've got very strong interests in the Indian Ocean. We share the ocean. Issues around maritime security, fisheries, all things that we share in common. So there are a few of the things, but deepening the people-to-people links, as I mentioned, education, our scholarships program, and just really getting to enhance our linkages in a more diverse way.
Okay, so what are some of the things that you'd envisage yourself as having achieved that you'd say, A, B, C, D, this is what I would really want to, quantifiable, that you can say within my tenure, this is my objective, this is what I'd like to having achieved by the time I leave?
Yes, yeah. I'd like to be able to point to a dozen business opportunities that I've been able to help facilitate between Australia and Kenya. Sort of, hopefully, I will return to Australia a number of times while I'm here, obviously, to encourage businesses to come and invest and increase their opportunities here in Kenya. So if I can pinpoint to some really tangible examples of where Australian companies have increased their investment here, that would be great for me. I'm very strong on gender equality and women in leadership, so I hope I can reach out to Kenyan women and girls while I'm here and encourage their empowerment. We're supporting with UNICEF Kenya at the moment the End Child Marriage campaign, so I'm hoping that we can really see a stronger conversation around issues like that.
Now that you're strong on gender equality, your initial feeling of how Kenya is doing in terms of gender parity when it comes to business, when it comes to possibly even our political scene, maybe in comparison with Australia?
Sure. I've met some amazing women in my time here, and some wonderful young women who I know are going places, and I think with some more support and the support of the community, they can really grow and prosper here. I've been involved in some discussions about women in politics here, and I know there's a quota system in the political situation here. But I think what we need to move the conversation to women being empowered to enter politics here and leadership positions in the private sector, because they've got so much to offer. And for us in Australia, it's a very real issue too, the issue of gender pay parity, in the private sector. Women are still getting paid in some positions less than men. Very, very real life discussion in Australia about that, and that's not acceptable, and that we need to have pay parity. We need to encourage more women in Australia to also enter political life, to take up CEO positions of corporations. We have some excellent women in those positions now. We need more of them. So it's about really, in both of our countries, encouraging young women to know the sky's the limit. Our foreign minister is a woman. We have a Minister for International Development in the Pacific, a woman. The head of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade is a woman. We have a number of female ministers in Australia and heads of state government. So, it's about me encouraging that here
now, there
as
are
well.
those who feel, and this is not just in Kenya, even internationally, that the girl child has been pushed for a while, and this has come at a cost. And the cost is that the boy child has now been, sort of left in the back burner and possibly is not doing as well as he would. Your thoughts on that?
I think we want all children to grow and prosper. And again, to come back to education for every child is absolutely the aim.
Right.
Healthcare for every child. These are issues that we need to make sure that are across the board. But the girl child has not had opportunities over the years, and we need to do some really targeted support to them to bring them up and empower them. So this is not about leaving the boy child alone and aside to cope themselves. This is about allowing every child, boy and girl, to prosper and grow and have every opportunity. But we need to acknowledge that girls have been impacted more by prejudices and issues, family issues and schooling issues, and many of them have just not had the opportunity, and we need to be very proactive on that.
All right. We've come from a very protracted and long political period in the last few months, and maybe your advice or your thoughts, because I'm sure you do advise your citizenry in regards to travel and tours, and your thoughts on where we are today, and possibly what advice you'd have to Kenya moving forward.
Yeah, so I arrived just before the second presidential election, the rerun, and so I've obviously seen over the 2 months a very strong conversation that's happening, and can I just say that I think it's great in Kenya that you have the open media and the freedom of speech here. That's very important for both of our countries. As an Australian representing our Australian interests, we're very focused on upholding our constitution, the rule of law, democratic institutions, and they're the issues that I also, obviously want to urge and encourage here in Kenya. That upholding of the rule of law, respecting institutions, respecting freedom of speech. But I think Kenya needs to, come through this period stronger. I know there are calls for greater unity of Kenyans. I think that's very important. And I know the economy has taken a bit of a hit from the instability. And of course, we have seen some unrest and violence. I hope 2018 brings stability and prosperity, and that's something that we obviously will urge and support here as Australia.
What do you think the role of Australia would be in ensuring that Kenya, first of all, moves on in a peaceful and democratic manner?
Well, for us, it's about having open dialogue with government here about issues, as well as civil society. So we need to respect that everyone has that voice. We hope, Australia hopes we can encourage that in our through our High Commission efforts here, through our voice. But I think also just through that focus on the potential for Kenya and the ability for us to attract investors here, we need to be able to send the messages back to Australia that this is a stable, prosperous, vibrant country with great business enabling environment and regulation. So I think it's really for us to work with the government here and the communities and the civil society to encourage that forward-looking agenda.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to greater times and ties with Australia. But as we wind up, possibly just to know whether you've discovered a favorite Kenyan dish so far. Oh, that's a tricky one. I've had quite a bit of local food, yeah. Oh. Anything you've developed a liking for, or maybe it requires a bit more time for you to get used to it?
I think, well, I've had some goat since I've been here. That's not...
Do you have goat in Australia?
We do. We have a very, obviously being a very multicultural society, we have lots of different cuisines in Australia. So we do occasionally have goat served in restaurants back in Australia. So I have tried it before, goat curry, but I've had it more here in the last 2 months. So, yeah,
Are you going to be around for Christmas? Because there's plenty of goat going around over Christmas.
Yes, we will be here for Christmas, so we'll make sure we partake in some more goat. But look, yeah, there's great food here, and I'm hoping another thing that we can encourage is greater, also sort of greater involvement of our food and beverage businesses in Australia here, so that we can bring some of our cuisine here to Kenya as well. Okay,
now one of the things that we do over Christmas is that we go up country and have plenty of goat and get together with family. What's a traditional Christmas time in Australia?
Right. Well, it coincides with our hottest time of the year, with our summer. So for Australians of Christian faith, it's a very important time for church and for time with family. For all Australians, no matter what faith they have, it's very much a time to spend with family and friends. It's often spent at the beach as well. It's often cold food now in Australia more than hot food because it can be 35 degrees, 40 degrees in some places. So it's really just about backyard barbecues, prawns, fish increasingly popular on Christmas Day, but family and friends time.
Is what, oh wow, fantastic. Sounds like it's a good time in Australia. So we're wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Kenyan Christmas. So since you may not have an upcountry to go to here, well, feel free to find one and get some goats.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.
Nyama choma, as we call it. Thank you very much, Alison Chartres, for joining us this morning and letting us know how Australia and Kenya is doing.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that is where we wind up this interview. Australian High Commissioner to Kenya, Alison Chartres, enjoying herself in Kenya and, of course, wishing all Australians who may be watching and from wherever they are, a Merry Christmas and a prosperous, Happy New Year. For now, at 16 minutes after 8, we want to take a short break, but do stay with us. We have some stories making headlines coming up, but also later on, we'll be looking at your health and how you can ensure that you still remain healthy despite the roast meat that's going to be doing rounds over Christmas as the festivities have begun for some, how you can ensure that you still enjoy but keep healthy. That's all coming up right here on Morning Express.